We have a big but short week coming up in the markets. I'm going to talk about it. I am Dr. Stock, and I am also going to keep the Thanksgiving puns going because that is how I casserole. We're going to take a technical analysis view of the markets. We're also going to talk some big tech in this video as well. As we have Nvidia earnings, we have news from Microsoft, and some more information on Tesla ready to go, fired up. I'll tell you what's going on over at the Patreon, and I will also tell you about your free stocks from Mumu, but all that stuff can wait until later. So this week is a short week for us because Thanksgiving Day, which is Thursday, the markets are closed, and then the markets close at 1 p.m. Eastern time for the stock markets on Black Friday. So as far as Black Friday goes, that can be a big retail day, and numbers from that can really impact the market. And this year, that can be a bigger impact than usual, especially because we want to see consumer strength hold out. We also want news on Cyber Monday that follows. So that gets into that next week following it. So we should expect to see lower than normal trading volumes, especially on Friday when that comes out. And also the Wednesday before Thanksgiving can also have lower trading volumes as well. So this week could be a little bit strange, a little bit weird to look at. And then a few things to point out about that. Nvidia earnings, that is a really huge thing for us because that is the last of the Magnificent Seven companies to report, and it's one of the most anticipated. So we really have to spend some time talking about that in this video. So let me first put up trading economics. We'll talk about what's going on the calendar. So we have conference board leading index today at 10 a.m. We want to watch for that, and we want to see these numbers in here coming in higher than this negative 0.7 that we have is going to be positive for the markets. Coming in lower than that is going to be negative for the markets, or I should say upward pressure and downward pressure instead of positive and negative. So we want to watch for that one. And then we also have some auctions coming up as well that can be impactful to the markets as we watch that come out. So moving on to Tuesday, Chicago Fed National Activity Index. We want to watch for positive numbers here for expansion, negative numbers for contraction. Home sales, FOMC minutes at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. That is going to be something that might be a catalyst for us. I don't think it's going to be the biggest one. I think right now the inflation numbers that we see and the jobs numbers that we see are going to be bigger than the minutes that we see coming out. But we'll still watch for it. We'll still see if there's anything there to really report on. Moving into Wednesday, the last day that the market is open prior to Thanksgiving, we have durable goods coming up at 8:30 a.m. Again, talking about consumer strength. Consensus right now is coming in negative for month over month. So we'll have to watch and see if we get some sort of beat on that coming out, which again, upward pressure should we come in higher than these numbers, or if we come in much lower than these numbers, that can be downward pressure. So we want to watch for that. And then let's move on to Friday. On Friday, you can see S&P Global Composite, and I believe above 50 is good, below 50 is bad. So upward pressure and downward pressure when we look for those numbers coming out, as well as we can look for expansion for the good, contraction for the bad. So expansion would be upward pressure for the markets, contraction, downward pressure for the markets. And then after that, it starts to get into the following week, and we'll save that for the next video after we see what this looks like as it comes out for us. So let me pop back out of that, and we're going to move over to the charts from this. And I do want to start off with the US dollar index. So here we have the daily chart for DXY tracking the strength of the US dollar, and dropping can be good for the markets as we get down near 100 on this. We are right now at just below this 200-day coming across the screen right now, which is a bearish sign, which could mean a further drop. So pushing down below that could be the sign of a further rally for the markets. And let's bring up the US 10-year Treasury yield. And when we put this up, you can see we're down below the 50-day on this one. And that is also something that is a bearish sign for us, which could mean a further drop in those yields, which is good as long as they come down, and it answers the question of whether or not the U.S. will be able to service their debt. However, it is something that should we see significant buying in the bond market, it could show that there is a flight to safety happening. So there is some sort of tipping point where the US 10-year Treasury yield stops being a positive catalyst for the markets. It can start to show signs of wariness for the market. So we do want to be watching out for that as well. Let's move on to SPY. And so when we look at the ETF that tracks the S&P 500, you can see that we've had an amazing rally. If you've been watching the markets at all, you know about that. I'm going to get rid of this old drawing that I have here. And for this top, what we don't know is where that top is. We are at resistance. You can see with this previous peak that we have over here, you could see the slowdown in the rally happening as well. I think Nvidia is going to be a big part in that to say whether or not we go back and retest this previous high that we have back here at about 457, and right now we're at about 450. So will we see another 2% put on? And if we zoom out even more, you can see that we even have higher to go from there to reach the all-time highs of 467. So that actually puts us, let me see, about 3 to 4% away from all-time highs as we look at this right now, and should we retest those all-time highs, I think that we would see a significant pullback coming from that time. But the thing that we want to look at in those pullbacks, whenever they happen, should they happen, and they will happen eventually, is that we want to see where that low comes in, where we end up finding support on these. And I think that we'll find those previous areas of resistance coming back to be something that would fall back on in support. So could we see 438? Absolutely. 440? Absolutely. We could see that sort of pullback. What we want to watch for is that we're still putting in those higher lows from what we had before. So higher highs, higher lows could tell us that a rally will continue for this. So let's get over to QQQ, which tracks the NASDAQ 100. And if I put in enough Qs, but not too many, the chart actually shows up. So here, as we look at QQQ, you can see we actually did get back to the peak that we experienced back in the 19th of July. So that is almost 4 months ago to the day, 4 months and 1 day ago. Still not the all-time high that we had, but we're getting darn close to it. If we go back to all-time highs of 404, so just putting in over 400, that's about 18. So about 4% up from where we're at right now. So then the NASDAQ 100 and the S&P 500 both have about 3 to 4% before we start to see those all-time highs come back to us, should we continue to rally that far. So I do think there's a major market implication coming up. And I think that pressure goes to Nvidia to really impress with its performance to tell us whether or not this rally continues that we see in the markets, or if it's going to be something that we start to see that near-term pullback coming in, depending on what we hear from Nvidia for their earnings forecast. I think that is the last holdout for us, being the last of the Magnificent Seven to report its Q3 earnings. So let me take this quick moment. The Dr. Stock Patreon, you can go over there, access the Discord. In that Discord is where I post my buys and sells. I also, on Patreon itself, I have my NVIDIA stock price prediction and earnings projection. And then I also have my options course that I'm building over there. The applications are coming next to it. And then the free stocks from Mumu, you can sign up using the link down in the description. Get up to 16 free stocks valued up to $2,000 a piece. Here are the deposit levels, and here's the free stocks that you receive. And then also 5.1% APY cash sweep vehicle for any unused cash in your account. So lots of benefits there, as well as the fact that I use that for my options trading. They also have an options analyzer tool and calculator that can really help to plan out your options positions. I really do enjoy it. I use it myself, and it's been absolutely wonderful. All right, let's get over to the charts that we have for the tech plays. Getting back over to the charts, we're going to kick things off with Tesla, and you can see the rally that Tesla's been on, but it's still in its bearish channel. We do want to watch to see if we do end up retesting the top of this. Breaking above that would be absolutely bullish for us. I don't know that we have the market conditions for that. Thursday was a weird sell kind of day, and that's because there was a negative catalyst with Musk saying things on X, or commenting on things on X that do not reflect very well for him or the company, and so we had a bit of a sell-off. It can have material impacts on the company, so check that out, read about it, see what you think, and then we actually have some positive catalysts, upward pressure for the company, and that is leaked information about a possible release of the full self-driving beta coming out in other countries other than the US, which is absolutely huge, can be a huge revenue boost, high margin that can also affect the bottom line profits as well. So we would be watching for that. So it is still possible that we get a decent rally coming out of Tesla. We do want to break above the 50-day that's rocking at about 240. We do have support of the 200-day down at 222. Breaking back down below that 200-day is another bearish sign. We do want to watch where we see that support come in. We do have a long-term historic support coming in that would slant up on this. I don't have it drawn right now, but I will tell you that 200 is that ultimate support that we're looking for right now. Breaking down below that could be an area where we quickly recover, such as we had this past time. Moving over to Microsoft. For Microsoft, we got news that Sam Altman, the former CEO of OpenAI, just this weekend got ousted by the board for not being transparent enough, and then the CEO of Microsoft swooped in and took him over to the Microsoft team. So now he is part of Microsoft. It's been seen as a positive catalyst. It should really support their AI work that they do. So this is one, Microsoft has been on a significant rally, going from just over $300 per share to up to $373 in the pre-market as I record this video right now. So it's been a really good run for Microsoft. I think that we could possibly see a peak sometime soon before we start to pull things back to about 360. Maybe we even see things come back to about 350 for Microsoft sometime over the next several weeks if the market does happen to pull back before that next part of the rally that we have going. Moving on from there to Nvidia. There we go. I put up my video yesterday talking about Nvidia on the Patreon. So if you remember that, you can go over and check that out, as well as the spreadsheet that I have with my stock price prediction and earnings projection. I will say we are closing in on that $500 mark again. We did almost get there. We peaked out at $499.35 was the open. $499.60 was the high price that we had going all the way back to Wednesday, the 15th of November. So we might stay around 500. And if that's the case, we can go to either side on this, up or down. And I'm going to say that we have about an 8 to 10% swing that we could make on Nvidia's price from that 500 mark. So we want to watch and see what happens near those earnings. And so 8 to 10%, I think it's going to be huge if they miss. It's going to be huge. I think the whole market's going to feel it. And I think that's what sent us back down to find out where our next area of support is, not only for Nvidia, but also what we're looking at in the S&P and also in the NASDAQ. And then we do have room on this down to about 460, 470, all the way down to about 450 as we look at this. I don't anticipate a miss on this. I think that they're going to hit. I think it's going to be good. I don't think the China headwinds are going to be a huge material loss for them, at least maybe in the near term, but I don't think over the long term if that's going to happen. We have the release of the GH200 series coming out in Q2 of 2024, and then the B series coming out after that, which is supposed to be even more incredible performance over what we see with the GH series. From the 100s to the 200s, supposed to be incredibly more power efficient and also more powerful, putting much more throughput and bandwidth in there. And then the B100 series coming out after that is supposed to be even better than that. And so we should hear that announcement in 2024. I think they're going to keep the news rolling. And I think the demand that we see globally for Nvidia, people are seeking out alternatives from Nvidia, not because of the expense. I should say companies aren't seeking out alternatives to Nvidia because of the expense. They're seeking out alternatives to Nvidia because they're trying to still compete, even though they can't get their hands on the hardware. So supply chains are going to be huge for Nvidia. We want to hear that commentary as they come out and talk. So if we go really big on what to expect for Q4, and if they give any sort of indication of 2024 outlook for their fiscal year 2025, that could also be incredible. I do think that 550 would be the ultimate cap on this as we watch it. So we'll watch and see if that happens. It is run up already. We have seen this price before. It all comes down to the progress that they've come out to make for this one. So 10% would be absolutely enormous for Nvidia, given the movement that they've made so far. But I do think that there's a window in there. I think minimum we see 5% movement in the stock price from that 500 level. So down to 475. Up to 525. I said before that I think Nvidia is a $500 stock, and I still stand by that I do believe that Nvidia is a $500 plus stock. And if you go check out my earnings prediction and stock price, and if you go check out my stock price prediction and earnings projection over at the Patreon, you'll see that I put the numbers, I put the homework into this, behind this, and I do think that we could have a very good next 12 months coming up for that. I will say there is a caveat with that, and that caveat is the strength of the overall market as well, because as the market picks up strength and we trade on higher multiples, so does Nvidia stock. As the market loses strength and we trade on lower multiples, so does Nvidia stock. So there's earnings, and then there's the market movement itself, and we want to be watching those two things because they will be slightly disjointed around earnings, and then Nvidia will start moving with the market fluctuations again, just maybe from a higher or lower baseline. So we're going to have to watch for that. We watched it happen all the way throughout Q3, all the way up until the earnings, which come out tomorrow at 5 p.m., and we're going to watch what happens going forward from there. So let me wrap up the talk about the markets. I think one of two things is going to happen. Nvidia earnings is the major catalyst, and it can report, it can surprise to the upside, and we go back and we retest the all-time highs that we saw in the S&P and in the NASDAQ 100. So 3 to 4% up from where it's at right now. Maybe that's this week, maybe that's this week and next week. But then I think the other thing that can happen is that Nvidia does not impress us. And then what we could possibly see is a near-term pullback, that we start to find out where that bottom sets in for us from this recent rally that we had. So then we find out where that new baseline is. So we're going to have to watch for that. I don't think it should be discounted. I do think that it's very important. And I think Wednesday is going to be a very interesting day that we have in the markets before we go on Thanksgiving break for Thursday, and then Friday going to Black Friday, where we could see those lower trading volumes happen as well. So don't discount the catalyst that is Nvidia earnings. Not only is it big for Nvidia itself, Nvidia stock price, but it's also big for the overall markets, I believe. So we'll watch and see what exactly happens there. So if we get that incredible news that allows us to peak out at that 550, that I think it's pretty out there as far as potential, but I still think it's within the realm of possibility. I don't think that it's something that's overly bullish to say that 550 could be something that we would see off of some sort of incredible earnings. I don't think that 450 is off the table as far as a low price for this one. I think the 5% up or down is the more realistic number that we're going to see. And if I was biased in either way, it would be in the bullish direction to the upside. So 525 to 550 would be where I'd put that range off of earnings for Nvidia, but we're going to have to watch and see what the market thinks about it and how it digests it. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you want to see more about Nvidia, go check out the Patreon. That link is down in the description. You can also see my buys and sells for how I'm playing this market. And then there's also that link for Mumu over there for the free stocks as well. So thanks guys for watching. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning is earning, and we'll see you in the next video.